I'm really Oh, here we go. I'm really agnostic. I'm apnostic. So I'm not a big fan of apps.
Power to Live More with Joe Dodds.
Welcome to the Power to Live More podcast, all about productivity, organisation, well-being, energy and resilience. I'm Jo Dodds, and I started this show to enable interesting people to share their stories about how they use their power to live more, and by that I mean to do the stuff that they want to do more than the stuff that they need to or should do. It's about creating a life for yourself where you have the energy, health and space to be happy and fulfilled, spending your time as you'd like, whether that be at work, home or somewhere else entirely. That's your choice.
Hello, my name is Ellie Dodds and I'm co-presenter, and today Joe is interviewing Scott Gould. Joe and Scott met via Engage for Success, the national non-for-profit movement all around employee engagement that Joe works with on a freelance basis. Scott is a writer, speaker and advisor, currently focusing on engagement strategy and helping global brands answer the question, how do we get people to be highly engaged around our mission? A former church minister, conference founder and creative director, he's passionate about bringing people together around soulful ideas, especially in an offline way. Back to the studio.
Today I'm joined by Scott Gould, who's an independent consultant. Hi Scott, thanks for joining me.
Joe, thanks for having me.
Great to have you here. So start by telling us a bit about you, what you do, and crucially, where you do it.
So I'm an engagement strategy consultant. It's a field that I've been working in for almost 20 years in one form or another, but I've spent the last 2 years actually providing consulting services for clients. And I do this from my house, from my home, or from a cafe around the corner, or occasionally on the road whilst we're driving with our kids to somewhere that we need to go.
It sounds a bit like me. The amount of calls I've had in the car or in odd places on the beach or whatever. In fact, I should tell a story. I should tell a story one day about my cousin who runs her business from her wherever she's camping and has answered calls while fishing in the boat. Told everyone to be quiet while she does
that. That is fantastic.
A very posh afternoon call, and it works quite well.
I'm going to put that one on my bucket list. I've not done that yet, but to be done. Exactly.
So paint a picture for that sort of home office thing. Where do you work in a particular room of the house, or is it more informal?
So in our house we have 3 bedrooms. One of those is my wife and mine. One is for my 2 daughters. The other bedroom is for my 1-year-old son and me. And so I share an office with my 1-year-old son, which means twice a day when he has his nap, I go out of my office and either go to the cafe around the corner or try to find a quiet spot in my home, which if the kids are around, doesn't happen. So normally means that instead I decide, sod it, let's play with the kids, I'll chase them, and then I might pick up my work again in the evening once I've settled the kids.
Lovely. I do like to know that people are living that integrated life. That's how we work in our house too. So
yes, integrated is a great way of saying it. Sounds far better than the way that I describe it as sod it.
Lovely. So tell us a bit about how you organise your day, how you get going in the mornings. Do you have a particular routine? I guess with 3 children it's probably a bit hectic regardless. So tell us.
Something that I think is really important is that we're flexible as people, particularly when we are working from home. So I used to be a church minister, and that was when I had 2 daughters and I didn't have my son, and they were both sleeping through the night fine. I would wake up at 4:30 in the morning and spend 3 hours praying and studying the Bible, right? Now, not everyone would do that, of course, but that's what I did, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. But I could do that because my kids weren't waking up till 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning anyway. There wasn't the school run. It was fine. Now I have a 1-year-old that's only just really sleeping through the night, and sometimes he still wakes up at 5:30 in the morning. And so that routine no longer exists for me. I'm also not a minister, and my life's changed a bit. But but what I do have is I read a very good book called The Power of When. I forget who wrote it, but the idea is it tries to lay out what are the optimum times in the day for you doing different things.
So what are you? What are you? What type of animal?
Oh, you read the book then, yeah. So you have. So I'm the bear, which I think is what the majority of people are, right? Yeah. Is the bear. Yeah. So I'm a bear.
7 till 11.
So what that means?
Yeah. Is that right?
Yeah. So what? Yeah, something like that. So what that means is, I mean, I'm actually really good when I wake up early, and I'm writing. I do my best writing early in the morning. During the day, well, during the late morning, I'm better for doing admin. I prefer to meet people in the afternoon, and then I prefer to do creative work in the evening. So I have 4 slots of the day that I will slot in different bits of work as I need to get them done. And of course, normally in a day, I'll work, say, 2 of those shifts. I won't do all 4, right? So I'll do a morning and an afternoon, or I do an early morning and a late evening, or whatever it might be, right?
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah, I'm a wolf, so I'm.
You're a wolf. Oh,
I'm a
late night
person. Yeah, I work late and get up late. But I have.
Well, I used to be a wolf, but
I thought you were a lion as well when you were a minister. If you were getting up at 3:30.
I was. Well, that was it. I changed to become a lion, which was great. But then, obviously, kids and everything, I've had to go back to being a bear. But I just think it's encouraging that you can change. And particularly now with kids, right? Come 10 o'clock, my wife and I are shattered. Like, I've got no energy to go any further whatsoever. So I just crawl into bed at 10 o'clock and I'm down.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think also, as you sort of said, society's not set up for different types as well. So I've changed as time has gone on because of having my daughter and her going to school at certain times, all that sort of stuff. And she is a wolf, and she can't cope with the getting up early thing. And we've never been able to get her to go to bed at a sensible time. Everyone else would be going, oh, my 3-year-old is asleep by 6:30, and I'd be like, my 3-year-old's still awake at 9 o'clock. I've got a video of her where she was reading a book. And she finishes the book and runs off to the bedroom, and I go, oh, that's good. Then is it time for bed now? Then she went, no, not yet. She went up for another book.
Yeah, well, you know what? I think that flexibility is just so important. I mean, I love routines. I thrive under routines, but I've got to shape them. I can't let them shape me because I've got a young family, and that's just what I need for this season right now. And I think there are some benefits of that as well, aren't there? Because it actually makes you go, okay, what's important to be done, and what can I just leave by the wayside and say, you know what, let's just forget about that. And I think that's another thing that having a young family possibly helps you do, is it makes you prioritize.
Mm-hmm. So when you talk about the different types of activities and slotting them into different parts of the day, do you very sort of clearly do that? So when you're arranging something, you know that there's a certain time of day where you'll be arranging it for, or do you find that doesn't work very well?
No, I aim to do that. I'm not as hot on it as I normally am at the moment. So as I say, I will normally arrange for meetings to be in the afternoon. If someone wants to do the morning and they can't make another time, or if I'm meeting a prospective client, of course I demur and I will do whatever time suits them. Mm-hmm. But generally, meetings in the afternoon, and generally if I've got, there's that Brian Tracy book, Eat That Frog. Yep. So normally I choose to eat the frog in the morning and just sit down and knuckle on. But I'll do that from about 10 o'clock. I'll spend the first hour just, from say 9 till 10, just reviewing, journaling, getting my mind in order, because a lot of my work is ideation and frameworking and coming up with clever solutions to difficult problems. So I make sure I invest in my mind's ability to do that on a daily basis.
So what about at the end of the day? I talk to people sometimes and they talk about, I leave the office at, 5 o'clock, or, shut my office door, and life, then happens. And that isn't what I do, because I do work in the evenings because, of the wolf tendencies. You obviously do some evening stuff too. How do you make that happen? And do you have like a wind down at the end so that you are ready to go to sleep, or is it, as you said, you've got 3 young children, so you don't need any help?
This is something I'm really bad at the moment, and again, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with myself being bad at it at the moment. I don't finish work and I think most people who work at home get this sense of it's just a never-ending, string of stuff that you're always thinking about and doing. You never switch off. And what's hard for me is that switching off. So at the end of the work day, it's 5 or 6 o'clock. I really struggle to transition back into family time. It's really difficult for me. I find it monumentally difficult. So I'm trying to do things like go for a walk. So literally get out of the house, go for a walk, come home, and now I'm in family mode. It takes, say 3 hours to have dinner, bath the kids, get them into pajamas, do bedtime stories, get them to sleep. And by that point, I feel like I need to do more work. And I probably don't. It's a bad compulsion I need to check and kind of get sorted in my life, really. The other thing that I'll often do is play Sudoku to wind myself down. I love Sudoku, and I'm pretty good at it as well, I have to say. I'm pretty well practiced.
That sounds good. So what about getting stuff done then? So you have obviously got lots of different things going on, and you've thought about different times of the day to do things. You've talked about Eat the Frog sort of early on. How do you make sure you get done what you need to get done on a daily and weekly basis?
So there's an exceptional book that you and the listeners have probably heard of called Essentialism by Greg McKeown.
Yep.
I've listened to that book on CD about 6-7 times. It is fantastic, and I really have adopted the ideology of essentialism into my life. So I endeavour to do as little as I can, and have as much margin and buffer in my life so that I can focus on the things that I know I add the most value with, which for me again is my ideas and my thinking. So I at the beginning of the week I do a weekly review. And I will set myself two tasks per day of the week that I'm working. So that would mean that will be achieving something between 6 and 10 things that week. And that's what I stick to. 2 tasks a day, one in the morning, one in the afternoon generally. Mm-hmm. And so I focus on doing small, not much, but I try to make sure the things that I do are high impact.
Yeah.
I give myself permission to go for a week without having any meetings and just being hunkered down in my manhole doing creative work. And when I do seek out client work, I try to make sure that it's very profitable for me so that I don't have to be looking over my shoulder trying to find more work. So I try to go for larger pieces of work that are based around, my core expertise, or preferably about me doing a workshop for a day for someone, which I love. And then I don't have to work for the rest of the month if I can get one of those. So I try to, I guess I really pursue buffer as much as I can.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And one of the things I talk about with my 5 fundamentals, the first thing is about simplifying and being very clear about what you want to do and what you don't want to do, and then basically aligning everything that you do to that. Certainly, I guess as I've read Essentialism as well, I'm probably applying some of that, intentionally and unintentionally, doing the same thing and trying to make that space for other stuff. And it's funny, when we talk about working in the evenings, I sometimes think to myself, well, most people would say that's a bad thing, but actually, today I've been out and about with my daughter. It's the school holidays. I haven't done very much at all today. This now is probably the most work I've done all day, and that's fine, but I will do some work later, and so that isn't a problem on the basis that I've had most of the day to do those other things.
And also I think the benefit of us people who work at home is we've got the privilege often of enjoying what we do. For me to spend an evening working, I enjoy that. So, this is how sad I am, is the other night, it was a Friday night, and we settled the kids, and I said to my wife, right, I'm off. I went to a hotel around the corner, and they've got a nice kind of sky bar, sat there with a laptop, and I spent the evening working on a database that's my business dashboard. But I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I really enjoyed it, and to me that's fun. Now admittedly I've got to unplug as well, right? So if I'm doing that all the time I'm not unplugging, but for me, I just love that. I also spend a lot of time thinking and journaling about who I am and what work am I doing, and am I doing my best work? Because I think I'm a real firm believer that if one is going to be a consultant or a coach or a freelancer, you've really got to go big on the thing that you do. And that requires you to trade off. And that's a kind of key essentialism idea, is trade off, is go, okay, there are lots of things that I could do. Let me pick out the thing that I should do, that I want to do, that is my 9 or 10 out of 10 skill. Let me focus on that and say goodbye to the 6, 7s, and 8s.
Yeah.
And so that requires you to really think and trade off and pit one thing against the other. So something that I'm good at, that I've done for years, is events. I've run around 400 events through my career, from loads of small workshops to hundreds of Sunday church services to large concerts, conferences, even festivals of thousands and thousands of people. But I've decided it's not my best contribution. I will not run events anymore. And that decision, when I finally came to it, was just liberating, because I go, okay, the thing that I am good at, though, is coming up with ideas and communicating them so that people can understand stuff and apply it. Mm-hmm. So I'm majoring on that. So I guess I spend a lot of time thinking about what it is that will be the best stroke for me, and trying to focus on that, and trying to get all the other stuff out of my hair, including turning down clients if the work is just not moving in the direction that I think I should be going in.
Mm. That's really, really interesting, and something that I guess is really hard for a lot of people. But as you say, I suppose essential is the key word with that. And it does make such a difference, doesn't it, to then know that you are doing the stuff that you really want to do and is the best.
Yeah. I mean, I'm really passionate about this, because I think we do. Look, I need work as much as the next person, and so in no way am I swimming in reserves of cash. I've taken big risks to go big on what I feel are my 9s and 10s, rather than dwell on my 7s and 8s and try to make them work, because perhaps they're a bit more accessible. They're a bit more obviously the things that people buy. So turning those things down has cost me money, but it has enabled me. And I know this, I'm someone who focuses intently on something. So I can't have a dual focus. I can't focus on doing something that's a 7 and an 8 as well as develop something that's a 9 or a 10. I can't do both at the same time.
No. And
the benefit of that trade-off for me has been that now when I do score that 9 and 10 work, they're large enough contracts that I go, boom, great, I've got some breathing space now. And that is very rewarding.
Yeah, and I think, the one line a bit earlier when you said, if you get a workshop, then that means you don't really have to do work for the rest of the month. My voice is going, hang on.
It's all right, Joe. Yeah. I can elaborate on the point while you sip is certainly, that's
so most people would just keep going. Have. Yeah, because people would feel scarcity or worry that it won't carry on, you won't get one next month or whatever. Most people would keep working sort of frenetically. And actually, I just love that idea of just sitting, thinking, right, that's it, that's done. And you'll still do stuff, but it's not, it's getting, I hate talking work-life balance. I talk work-life integration, as I said at the beginning, but it is that about, what's enough so that I can spend my time doing the things I want to do as well.
Yeah, that is something I think of, and I think like most home working people, right, I'm always thinking about, okay, how many months runway do I have?
Yeah.
What's worst case scenario, things like that. And I try to have enough of a buffer that I can be selective enough to do the stuff that I go big on. And I'm finding that as I focus in on my 9s and 10s, it elevates me.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think this ties into another critical subject of when someone's working from home is that, and it affects all of us, particularly when you're working at home, is the issue of confidence. When you're by yourself and you're not around your colleagues during the day, you're not seeing your skill in action through the lens of other people on a regular basis. And so confidence can very easily run low.
Yeah.
Am I really making a difference? Am I really worth what I'm charging? And certainly these tie into key issues around, should I be charging this? And then am I getting enough business? And is my value proposition too arrogant, or is it too humble, or whatever it might be? But as I've pushed into my 9s and 10s, and the things that I recognize in my 9s and 10s are the things that I've asked other people to affirm in me as well. Because if I see it but no one else sees it, I've got an issue. But other people do see it, I find that it's boosted my confidence massively.
Yeah.
And enabled me to play. So now I'm able to kind of go, right, I'm going to focus on working with global brands that are, 100 million of revenue plus or whatever. And that's something that has come about literally in the last 6 weeks by me making a decision about where I want to focus. And again, going big on that decision and taking the risk. But in that short space of time, I've had a few key leads click, and I feel like, you know what, confidently, I can now feel like I'm there. So I think the trade-off is scary, but when it does pay off, it's really rewarding.
Yeah, exactly. So changing the subject a bit to be a bit more sort of practical with stuff. What about you talked about books already? We've mentioned a couple that you've used to help you to shape what you do. What about books, tools, apps, music, whatever? What sort of recommend? I'm sure there'll be a lot. You've already thrown 2 in.
Yeah. Yeah. So I, as you know, I'm very keen to mention a woman called Gretchen Rubin, who has a test on her website called the 4 Tendencies. So if you just Google Rubin 4 Tendencies, you can do her test. She has a book that's coming out about it, and I think it's mentioned as one of her previous books. I've not read any of her books, but I've done her test, and it basically tries to establish how you respond to external expectations and how you respond to internal expectations. And so what you get is a 2x2 matrix.
Yeah.
So someone who responds to both external and internal expectations, she says, is an upholder. Someone that upholds what they've promised to others and upholds to what they wish to do for themselves. And my wife's like that. She's very good at doing both. Someone who meets external expectations but not internal, Gretchen says they're obligers, because they will serve others but they won't serve themselves. That's me. I will go tooth and nail, right, to help someone else, but I would not uphold my own promise to myself. Flip of that, where someone follows themselves but they don't follow others' expectations, is what she calls a questioner or a challenger. Mm-hmm. And then the last one is when you don't uphold your own or other people's expectations, then you're a rebel. Then I've got a friend who's that, and I think you've got a friend who's like that as well.
Yeah.
And these are people that really love to explore the edges of stuff.
Yeah.
And are quite innovative in their thinking. And that tool's helpful because as an obliger, I know that if I need to motivate myself to get something done, the way that I do it is make a public commitment about it. And then I'm obliged to meet the expectations that other people have on me. So it's like a hack for getting myself to meet deadlines, is agree them with a client or agree them with my community in a way that, should I fail that, my integrity has been tarnished.
Yeah.
That really gets me moving. I hate it. I wish it wasn't the case, but it's the way I work. So, hey, there we go.
Yes, yeah, it's interesting. When we were talking earlier, I couldn't remember what I came out of. I think the book it is originally in is the book about habits, and I can't remember. Oh, Better Than Before, I think, is the book.
That's it. Yes, Better Than Before. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think actually I might be a questioner, which is the resists outer expectations and meets inner expectations. But I'm going to go off and do the quiz again because I think it's interesting because it was in the book Better Than Before, which is all about creating habits, and it was saying, once you know how you respond or not to such things, obviously then you can shape things around that, which is exactly what you've just said.
Yeah.
You know how to manage yourself now.
well, and again, this is a large thing that I spend time every day, I think, on this, is thinking about how I work how my operating system works so I can make it run the best. And I'm possibly unique in the sense of the time I spend doing that, but I think everyone's interested in it, even if they don't know how to work it out. And this is something that I actually have been helping others with quite a bit. And so I'm looking at how I can help more people do it, because I've kind of like developed a process for it now. So I look at things like, I have exercises to help people work out what their values are. And that's really great, because when you know what your values are, you then know what to do and you know what to avoid. So one of my values is unity, right? And by unity, I mean that I believe and I stand for togetherness. I stand for what is common between us, what unites us, rather than what separates us. As such, I'm not a critical person. I don't think criticism is bad. I think criticism is really, really valuable. But I don't do it because there are people who are really good at offering constructive criticism. I just stick to the point on unity because I know that that's what I'm better at. Any time that I put out a tweet that's even slightly negative, I just feel awful and delete it right away. So I just, knowing that about myself, I now know that that's where I should focus, right? So then there are just some things or positioning or articles or requests that I just won't meet, and I won't even try, because I know it transgresses one of those values that I have.
Yeah, I think that's such a key point about sort of being really clear in a whole host of areas as to what you want and who you are, and what you're prepared to do and what you're not prepared to do, and then making sure that that you bear that in mind when you're making those decisions, because so often we end up agreeing to do things, don't we, that just don't fit because we just do.
So like another one of mine is authenticity. So the way that I view my values is I don't view the opposite of my values as bad things. I view the opposite of my values as really good things, but they're good things that I'm not good at. So the opposite, I think, of unity is being able to critique. I think that's a really, really needed skill. I'm just not very good at it. But I have friends. I can think of one woman who's an Australian. She's fantastic at it. And she does it in a really loving way, but she's exceptional at it. So one of mine is authenticity. So I think that I wish that I was able to promote myself really boldly and say things like, buy my services and I will grow your business 4 times, and I will 10x your productivity or whatever. And I have no doubt that the people who say those things are able to do them. But that's just not my style. My style is one of authenticity, where I speak to different emotions and I speak a different message. And so I don't even try that stuff, because when I try it, I just feel like I'm wearing a glove that's ill-fitting or something. So I guess for me, I don't see the flip side of my values as bad. I see them as good things, but I've chosen something else that's good.
And so I get that bit about the authenticity. I'm quite similar, and it's interesting. I actually employed a social media manager to pick me up on my social media because I don't feel able to do it. But know that it's important. I speak at a reasonable amount of events, some of them fairly prestigious, but I can't do the whole, really looking forward to speaking at the hashtag blah, blah, blah event.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't do it, but I know it needs to be done. So I got someone else to do it for me.
Well, I think it's finding what works for you. So on my CV or my resume, I have one whole page, which is essentially quotes that things that people have said about me that I'm really honored they've said. And I have a list of my clients that I've worked with in the past, and I allow that to speak for itself. And so I'm more comfortable with that. Whereas I know some people who comfortably say, I'm a rising star, I'm a rising entrepreneur, I'm this, I'm that, I achieve these results. And I'm sure they are. I'm not critical of them. I've just learned that the way that I can do it is I can say, so-and-so said this about me, and I feel really honored about that. So if I'm speaking at an event, my take would be to say something like, I feel immensely privileged, because I do, that I'm speaking at this event. I'd love to get anybody's thoughts on the subject that I'm going to be talking on beforehand, so I can consider them for my talk. I feel that way that's me. That's more me, right? Anyway, I think everyone gets what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's a good tip. I'll have to follow that, as she's not doing it for me anymore, so I don't do it at all. But then I suppose you have to listen to the feedback and remember to include it.
Yeah. Well, that's it. Or I mean, certainly that's true.
Yeah. Cool. So, any more tools or apps or books or anything that you'd like to share before we move on?
You know, I'm really Oh, here we go. I'm really agnostic. I'm appnostic. So I'm not a big fan of apps. So my phone, I have no business apps. In fact, about as businessy as my phone gets is I have a banking app and I have a dictionary because I love words, and I have my calendar. I have no notifications on my phone. iPad is the same. I'm just not a big app person. This sounds arrogant. I guess I just try to get down and do the work. So I don't have like a to-do list manager. The only thing that I do have, which I developed myself, is I have a fantastic kind of spreadsheet database that I use to manage my business, my outreach, my marketing efforts, monitoring key stats, revenue or conversion of prospects or conversion of people onto my mailing list. And I was using a spreadsheet for that, but I've just over the last month started using a really great app called Airtable.
Oh, not heard of that one.
Oh, it's beautiful. So it's an online spreadsheet cum database. So it's a bit like Excel. It works a bit differently, so you've got to get your head around it. But once you get into it, it is really good. Oh. And what it solves for me is the issue of collaboration, because when I was using a spreadsheet, I couldn't share it with anybody without them going crazy and editing it, and then the formatting would change or whatever. Whereas with Airtable, because it's web-based, you can share it, and it's got a really nice iPad app, and it's also got a desktop app for PC or for Mac. That really helps too. So Airtable for me is my big thing. So I've got this database where I've got my goals, the things that I'm doing per week. I've got my 2 tasks per day in there. I've got my prospecting. I've got my current clients that I'm working on, plus the status of where they are with billing or where they are in the project. And then also I've done some scripting, because I like developing as a hobby, to create some automated stats for me. And it is just working a treat, absolute treat. I'm really enjoying it.
I need to introduce you to Jason Buckner. He was one of the early podcast guests, and he raved about Excel. And he's now an automation expert, and that's what he does for his clients. And I love Airtable. I'm sure I will send him a link.
I'm sure he would. I mean, automation stuff is really fun. I mean, I'm not crazy on automation. I really have an essentialist motto of like, as little as possible, but Airtable has been really fun. I have to say, the geek in me loves it. That's the app that I was using the other Friday night when I went to the Sky Bar. Was I was playing around with Airtable, and I just loved it. I was tweeting the founder saying, I love your app, and he followed me, and I was like, oh, this is just awesome.
Yeah, you're right. That is a bit sad.
That is sad. It is sad.
Something I would do. I think, it sounds great. So I've just remembered, before we started recording, you told me you were on did you call it a book fast?
I am on a book fast.
Tell me more about that. I'm intrigued, because I
Right. All right. So the story goes that as a minister, I had a pretty big theology library. Plus, before that, I'd been a consultant, and I'd run events and things. So my library was quite large on the business side as well. And I just collected books like crazy. I think I got to the point where my library was about 2,000 books, which is pretty sizable by most standards. You've got some people who have a library of, say, 10,000 books, but 2,000's a lot. And for my tiny office, the books were just stacked up to the walls, on every wall up to the ceiling.
Yeah.
So it was crazy. And it was a year ago that I was listening to Essentialism again, around the time of my son being born. I've listened to it a few times since then. I listen to it about once a quarter. And I thought to myself, this is just crazy. I've got all these books. I'm not reading them. And I was believing the lie that, first of all, if I owned them, therefore that meant that I imbibed all the knowledge through osmosis.
Yeah, I've done that.
Right, which I think most people have done that. The second thing is I couldn't walk into a bookstore without the agony of seeing all these books and going, if I just own that, if I just owned that, then I'd buy the book and either I wouldn't read it or I'd read it and it wouldn't make the change that it promised. And I realized that books, as much as I love books, they're still marketed to make you buy them with great covers and great quotes and great ideas, particularly this new smart thinking category in Waterstones. And they're really alluring, but they're actually a distraction.
Yeah.
And I think that the books which are truly awesome are few and far between. And I think most books could be a fraction of the size, but they're padded out to fit nicely on the shelf. So I said to myself, right, first of all, let's address all the books I have. So I gave away, I've probably about 500 books. So I gave away about 3/4 of my library. Mm-hmm. Just gave it away. So I'm in the process still of selling my weightier theology books because some of them, will fetch, say, 50, 60 quid.
Yeah.
Then, so that was last year. At the beginning of the year, I said to myself, right, no new books at all this year. And what I started doing is if someone recommended a book to me, at first I'd go, oh dear, what am I going to do? I'd hint as if maybe they could buy it for me so I didn't break the rule. And then, terrible. And then I actually figured out that if I go to Goodreads.com and look at the top 5 reviews, I can probably get from those top 5 reviews, there'll probably be a review in there that details the book in fairly enough that it will cover what each chapter is about, what the main ideas are, to the point where actually I will review that, I'll make notes on that. I then turn the notes that I make into a personal proverb. That's one of the ways that I learn. And for no money, I've actually got the lesson, got the main thing of the book, saved myself the money, but also critically, I've averted that terrible fear of missing out through not owning the book, right? And so for me, again, it's another manifestation of essentialism, is I believe that what's essential is few and far between, and that most stuff is just trivial and nice, but not life-changing. And life's just too short to try to play around with these ideas. I'm never going to be able, you've got people who do a PhD in a tiny, narrow subject and still not master it.
Yeah.
So I'm crazy to think that I can, read every book under the sun. So I took drastic action, and that's where I am.
Wow. I won't be doing that, but I can appreciate it.
Wow. So I've just gone through all of that. I've preached the gospel of book fasting, and I've not converted you. Clearly, This is not a compelling proposition.
No. Well, to be fair, I do get most of my books through Kindle or audio now, so I don't really add to my physical book collection, and I've pared that down over the years. But there are lots of books that I haven't read on my Kindle, so maybe I do need to think about it. But there we go.
Oh, see, I couldn't do Kindle because I would just be insane then.
Yeah, well, especially as I found a really good website where you can register and get sent an email every day which tells you which books are 99p or free. And I don't buy the 99p ones, but I do quite often download the free ones. And
see, it's just terrible. I could not open myself up to that. Otherwise, I would just be.
That's why I haven't told you what it's called.
Joe, you need deliverance from this addiction. I'm just saying, I can help with that.
Yeah, but you know what? When I talk about, people talk about their perfect Tuesday, what would they do if they could just do what they wanted to do? The only thing I ever say I want to do is read. So to be fair, it is my focus, the most important thing for me, whereas it's peripheral to some people. So, but anyway, no, that's really good. Cool. So we're coming towards the end. So I've got just 2 questions I want to make sure that we do cover off. We've only got a few minutes though. So firstly, what about if things don't go right? What do you do if you have a day where it hasn't gone right?
Have a beer.
Plan.
Have a beer, go get an early night. I have a saying to myself that when I'm dealing with a frustrating situation, sleep before I speak.
Oh, I like that.
So I sleep on it. And that doesn't just mean speak to other people, that means speak to myself. Begin all that negative self-talk, sleep on it, review it in the morning.
Yeah, like that one. That's good. And what about those days where you end the day knowing you've had the chance to live more? And that's where I talk about doing the things that you want to do rather than things that you feel you should do or you have to do. What will that day have looked like?
Oh, geez, I don't know. That's a tricky one. What, like, so is this my ideal day?
Yeah, it could be your perfect Tuesday, your ideal day. Yeah.
My perfect Tuesday would be hanging out with people walking around an inspiring city with my family, meeting new people, discussing really fabulous ideas, and enjoying interacting and experiencing a different lens of life, and probably having 5 minutes of fame in the midst of it. That would probably be mine, I suppose. Yeah. Lovely.
That's quite different to some of the ones that have been shared. So I always like that question because I get such different responses. So I'm just imagining what that 5 minutes of fame will be. You could do something really dodgy in the middle of that and be famous for it, but that may be not quite what you meant.
Well, no, I think it's more just I shy away from the spotlight, but also I enjoy it at the same time. I've got this very difficult relationship with it. So I think it would be being in it, but only for a little bit. Yeah, lovely. So, Scott, how can people find out more about you and get in contact with you? My website, scottgould, gould.me. I'm on Twitter, @ScottGould. Although I don't recommend you follow me. I don't think I'm that good at Twitter, really. But on my website, I do have a newsletter, and once a week I send out an email with like an engagement tip in, and that's probably the best thing that I do, and that's completely free and unspammy. I never talk about my services. I just talk about what you could do that would help you with some of your engagement challenges. So that's what I'd recommend people sign up for if they were going to do anything. Lovely. Thank you. Thanks so much for joining me, Scott. Some really interesting ideas and things shared there. So really appreciate your time. Oh, pleasure. Thank you for doing this podcast so consistently and faithfully.
Use your power to live more.
All this information is available in the show notes on the website, powertolivemore.com/ in this case 47. And the website is a place to go if you want to find out how I can help you to improve your productivity, organisation, well-being, energy and resilience, your power to live more, which is do more of what you want to do. And if you have a specific need to improve your power, you can talk to me about how I can help you. If you use powertolivemore.com/power chat, you can book in for a free call. Again, the link for this show is powertolivemore.com/47, and we look forward to speaking to you next time.
Use your power to live more.